Hi, it's Neil Delamere here, standing in for John, who's on his travels. Now, our next guest is a very interesting man. Pete Griffiths was a Scientologist for 20 years and ran a Scientology mission in England before he had what he calls a penny-dropping moment. He's been living in Westport for 15 years and is running an event in Dublin later this month called Speaking Out Against the Scientology Cult. Pete Griffiths, good morning.
Hello, Neil.
Are you well today?
I'm very well, thank you.
This all started for you back in 1987 after your brother bought a book called Dianetics, wasn't it?
That's right, yeah. He bought the book and then he just had to tell me all about it. So that was the very beginning of the whole thing. Yeah.
And what did he tell you about it?
He told me that it was a book that I ought to read, and I dutifully read the book to keep him happy. I knew nothing about the mind, and the person who wrote the book, L Ron Hubbard, obviously felt he did know something about the mind. So it was kind of interesting, but, I didn't really think much more of it than that.
You could take it or leave it at this stage. What age were you at this stage? Now,
I was in my early 30s, yeah.
Yeah, and you'd been working for a while, so you're a confident young man at this point. You're kind of fairly sure of yourself.
Very much so. And I don't think there was any particular problem in my life at that time either, so.
And then what happened? Did your wife buy a copy of that book?
Well, she did, because two of us couldn't read the same book, and she wanted to read it because she was always interested in self-improvement and that kind of a thing. She ordered her copy from the local organisation, the local Scientology organisation, and that was sent out to her. And she began to read as well. But of course, because they'd sent her the book, she began to get the phone calls, which is what happens to anybody who buys the book. How are you getting on with the book? Hi, this is blah, blah from the Dianetics Centre. They hide Scientology at this stage. They don't call it Scientology. They call it Dianetics.
So I am assuming that you were in receipt of the same phone calls?
No, I wasn't, because I'd been given the book by my brother, so only my wife got the phone calls. Yeah. Sorry, Neil. Yeah.
So your wife. What was your wife's and brother's reaction to it compared to you? You seem at this point to be kind of, okay, I can take it or leave it.
I was very much take it or leave it. My brother was doing courses there, that much he did tell us. And then with the phone calls, my wife went over to see them for a free personality analysis, which is exactly what they're offering right now in Abbey Street. And this is like 25 years later, they're trying the same thing. And she spent some money, which we could ill afford at the time. We were just married a year and we were paying the mortgage and everything else. And she bought some Dianetics counselling. And I didn't mind, I wouldn't be against anybody trying to improve themselves. In fact, I think it's a great idea if you can. So what happened was she was heading across there at the weekends. And then one weekend I went to collect her. And as I'm walking past the place, a girl suddenly jumps out and says, come and do a free personality test. And I said, well, this is amazing because I was coming here anyway. And she said, oh, you must be Sandra's husband. And at that point it was like, oh, come in, do the personality test. I said, well, I was going to get coffee first. Come in, we'll give you coffee. And they were so friendly and nice, I have to say. And the personality test, for anyone who's ever done it, will know. It's 200 questions and it is tedium. You can answer definitely yes, definitely no, or maybe. And the questions are along the lines of, do you make thoughtless remarks or accusations which you later regret? You have to think about every answer, and
right.
There's 200.
Yeah.
And then when you've done that, you get this piece of paper with a graph, and it covers things like, the top of the graph's brilliant. It's like happy, composed, etc. The bottom is depressed and nervous and all the negative things. And some of these points on this graph will be in the low area. And that's when the graph itself becomes a sales tool. So they try to make you introspective and to get you thinking about how awful things are and how much better they could be. And that's when they tell you that you need Dianetics. There's a pattern, you can read this online, how you're not to be apologetic. You're to say to the person, you are depressed. And whether they agree or not, you actually say, you need to read this book. And then when they agree to that, you sell them the book and then say, now you need to get some of this procedure, Dianetics auditing. The funny thing is, when you actually do your Dianetics auditing and have some success, if you do, because a lot of people don't, they then tell you, oh, we don't do that anymore. It's advanced since then. We do other stuff. And that's when they start to introduce you to Scientology.
So you were saying that they're only trying to help people. I mean, the people, as far as you're concerned, in Scientology believe that Scientology is the way forward.
Absolutely.
And their motivation is, if not their methods, but the motivation you would suggest is positive.
The motivation is nothing but positive. The aims of Scientology are a world without crime, insanity and war. And I think we all want that.
Yeah, they are noble.
Absolutely. The downside about all of this is that L Ron Hubbard devised those aims of Scientology, and anybody who gets involved thinks, well, yeah, I can agree with that. That's fantastic. The most evil part of the whole con trick is the fact that he's using your desire to achieve those aims to recruit people into Scientology, to spend all their money. I mean, basically, the guy, I'm not too sure of the amount of money he amassed by the time he passed away, but it was something like 680 million in cash,
It's a huge amount of money, but talk to me about your state of mind when you were in it itself. I mean, you were in it for a long period of time. You must have felt a sense of empowerment when you were there.
Very much so, very much so. The one thing they try to do with the personality test and every subsequent interview that you ever have with a registrar, this is the salesperson in Scientology, they try to make you feel bad. If you come out of a session feeling really good about yourself and, 10 tons lighter and all the rest of it, the registrar then has to make you feel bad all over again so that you'll buy some more. And it's really quite awful the way they do this, So it's quite it's two-faced and sarcastic, It's two-faced, basically.
So it's kind of passive-aggressive. You're great. You've made lots of progress this week. However, you're really down on this thing, and we need to get you back in
totally
next week.
And in my case, like what they try and do as well, they also try to find what they call your ruin. And if you look at the press pack that we've developed, there's a page from a Scientology publication which has a list of ruins and which L Ron Hubbard book is best to sell to the person to read about that particular ruin that they have.
So it's like a room 101, is it?
Yeah.
From George Orwell.
In some ways it is. It's like, what's in that room? Yeah. And it could be anything. I can't talk to girls or whatever. I have problems handling my money. They've got a course or a book for absolutely everything. So whatever you come up with, they've got an answer. Now, in my case, I didn't have anything specific in my life that I felt was holding me back. Just a belief that I could do better and be better. So they convinced me that my reactive mind was holding me back, and if I got rid of my reactive mind, I would actually take off and be this wonderful guy. And that's why I spent a mortgage payment on buying Dianetics processing.
So, what does that processing consist of? Is there hypnosis involved?
It actually is hypnosis, but they say it isn't. And they're very good at hiding something by shoving it in your face and saying, "Oh no, it's not hypnosis."
So you think it's like hypnosis?
It's absolutely like hypnosis. You even count down from 10 to 1 and close your eyes, and then they look for your eyelids to flutter. And apparently, stage hypnosis people do the same thing. They look for that little flutter of the eyelids to show that you're under, and they do exactly that.
So what was that like the first time you did that?
Well, I'll be honest with you, it was fantastic because I'd never in my life ever looked back. I didn't have time to sort of dwell on myself, So to sit down in a chair and have somebody interested in you. And I mean, the first question he said to me was, "What did you eat yesterday?" Well, I'd had fish and chips and my eyes are closed. And he said, "Fish and chips." And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Can you smell that?" And I just took a deep breath in and my mouth started to water, instantly thinking about this fish and chips. So I went, "Woo, yeah." And I got this big picture of a plate of fish and chips. So that was quite wonderful. And I have to say, there's some workability in this Dianetics procedure, because this is what started the whole thing. I mean, it took off in 1950. People read the book. It's so many pages that just go on and on and on. But the actual procedure is on one page, and you could learn to do it in 20 minutes,
What happens after the fish and chips? And this is intriguing me. Where did this happen, by the way? I want you to...
This was all in the northeast of England, in Sunderland, yeah.
So you think you're being brought into a brand new world. You're shown you think that you're being shown the recesses of your mind. You're imagining fish and chips. You're in Sunderland, which is, I've been to Sunderland, and
okay.
I won't make any disparaging remarks, but going back into my own mind might be a nice thing to do sometimes in certain parts of Sunderland. But what happens after that? You're kind of under then. Is there a power of suggestion? Is there, this is what you need to do? Is there a man whispering in your ear? Or?
The procedure itself is actually quite simple. You find some incident in your life that upset you. Now, in my case, and I don't mind talking about this, it was the death of a friend. Okay. And you locate what you think is the beginning of this incident, and you just to simply talk your way through it. And then when you've done that, they ask you to do it again. So you go back to the beginning and you do it again. And they ask you to find anything additional that you'd forgotten. So, of course, you keep doing this, and you can do this for hours. And every time you go over it, you might remember something different that you'd forgotten about, some hidden detail. And as you're doing this, you do feel a sort of euphoria come over you. And that's what they want you to feel, because if you're feeling good about stuff that had previously upset you, they've got you. You're hooked, you know. And sure enough, I paid for more courses. I joined staff after about 6 weeks. You know, I really threw myself into this full time. So to find out after 20 years that it was all based on lies, that is heartbreaking.
So I should say, by the way, we did ask, we invited the Scientologists from their Dublin mission to take part in our discussion this morning. They said that they would prepare a statement in response, but we haven't received a reply as of yet. So we are waiting for that to come in. Do you feel vulnerable? Because I mean, this is the kind of 87 to 90. I mean, you were involved with the church for a long time. There were people going around to schools in Ireland, I remember it,
yes.
warning of the cult of Scientology. So do you feel that you were foolish or gullible now that you look back?
I don't regret it, because it was definitely a very interesting learning procedure. I would, however, advise that nobody ever gets involved with them, because the devious thing about all of this is that you can be involved, you can be absolutely brainwashed and not even realise that you are, which I suppose is good brainwashing, you know, or as good as it gets. You will devote your life, you will leave your family, you will absolutely cut yourself off from your social circle. So, you know, people often say to me, well, why don't you complain about the Catholic Church? They've done this and that. And I think, to paraphrase a friend of mine, if you look at what Scientology actually does to people, it is the most thorough organisation in the world for destroying you emotionally, spiritually, mentally. Your social circle's gone, financially, family as well. Like I have a brother I can't speak to because of all this.
Is he still a member of the Church of Scientology?
He is a Scientologist, according to himself. He was in the C organisation, which is the elite part of Scientology, and he left that after 24 years. I don't know why. I'd love to ask him. I'd love to know. He's trying to get by in normal society now, and it'd be like 24 years in jail, you know.
How did this manifest itself? So I'm assuming that the falling out is based on you leaving the church and then
it's because I was declared a suppressive person by the Church of Scientology, and a suppressive person is someone who basically, it's a critic of Scientology. That's all it is. They tend to go into more details and say that suppressive persons have hidden crimes. In my case, that's absolutely not true, because when I began to protest about Scientology, I thought, well, if I have any hidden crimes, they're going to find them out and publicise them. So I thought, well, I'd better not have any. And sure enough, I couldn't find any, apart from the odd parking ticket, you know.
Well, when's the last time you spoke with your brother?
Actually at my father's funeral, and the only reason we got on there is because we kind of agreed not to talk about the subject of Scientology.
And what would you like to say to him if you did?
I'd love to. I'd just give him a big hug, you know, and say welcome back.
What did your father think of the two of you, the two brothers going into?
It broke his heart. It absolutely broke his heart. And yet, you know, parents, you know, they can't be seen to take sides. You can't love one child any more than the other. So it was difficult for them as well. My mother's still distraught over the whole thing. The hope is that he's now out of Scientology and living a normal life. So I'm hoping that he will just kind of slowly normalise. And if he takes the sensible approach and uses Google as a search engine and finds out about, you know, the way I did, then he will start to wake up. Because, like, you know, I believe that the truth always wins in the end, and lies cannot possibly win because they're based on just rubbish, basically.
And is that how you know, came to what you believe is the truth? Google? Or
Absolutely,
was there any one kind of...
Yes, it started for me in February 2008 when I heard about the protests, which, I mean, in Abbey Street initially, but they were worldwide. I mean, 10,000 people stood outside Scientology organisations with signs, and that for me was the beginning. It took another few months of almost constant research in the evenings on the internet, 2 or 3 hours a night, to find out the full story. And then, as I say, about 3 or 4 months into that, it kind of hit me, oh my God, you've been conned. You know, it's all a lie. And that was the moment for me. So I gathered up all the Scientology books that I had around the place and posters, at a big fire in the garden, and burnt the lot.
That must have been a cathartic process in one way, but...
It was horrible, I'll be honest with you.
Guilt?
It was absolutely horrible, yeah, because it meant that anybody that I'd gone into Scientology back in the day, they were in it because of me, and that felt bad as well, you know. So I felt bad for myself, obviously, but the people that I got in, I felt bad for them, and I made efforts to contact them, Some had actually left, which was good. Some were still in and refused to speak to me.
So what? This is some sort of, I suppose, atonement is a good word for it. Is that what you consider this?
Yes.
Your talk that you're organising to try and?
I would in one way, say that yes, it is. I mean, it is a form of atonement. I guess if you've done something that you consider wrong, then you try and make good the wrong that you've done. And if I can keep people from getting involved in this evil cult, then I'll have done some good.
And is your wife still involved?
She was quite lucky, actually, because my wife had been a psychiatric nurse, and although she was on staff with me, you see, Scientology think they're the experts in the human mind, so they're dead against psychiatry. The truth is, basically, that Hubbard in 1948 begged for psychiatric help and didn't get it. So he's got a personal grudge against psychiatrists. And then, of course, they didn't like his Dianetics, so he's got another grudge there. It's personal in his case. However, my wife had worked as a psychiatric nurse, and when they found out, she couldn't be on staff, so they kicked her off, basically, because of that.
When you were working on staff, you're in the full-time employ of the Church of Scientology. Mm-hmm. What sort of money are we talking about here? Are you getting paid lavish lifestyles from the people who buy all the Dianetics books?
When I joined staff, I was promised £200 a week. Now, this is back in 1987, so I'd say that's on a par with an average wage. For the first 6 weeks, I got nothing. They sent me away to Sussex training, and I still didn't get anything. Now, fortunately, I had a bit of savings, and also during the 3 years I was on staff, I sold a house, and we actually used the proceeds of that. We bought Scientology courses as well, but I also used some of the money to live on. In the 3 years I worked for the organisation in Sunderland, I doubt if I received £200 the whole time. It was just dreadful. Some weeks there'd be nothing. Some weeks there'd be like £4. Other week, I think the most I ever got was £8. So I mean, actually no. There was 1 week when we got £30.
Where does the money then that is raised go, do you think?
Okay, the way it's set up, everything they make that week goes that week. So if you make 30 quid in 1 week, there's been no staff wages, and a percentage of that gets sent to America. Back in the day, this would have gone to Hubbard. How it's all done and where it goes, I don't know, but there are people that are speaking out about the financial trails. They've got bank accounts in Liechtenstein and other, what's the other one? Luxembourg, is that where they have secret accounts? Switzerland? Oh, yeah. In fact, Hubbard...
Cayman Islands, maybe.
There's a fantastic interview with Hubbard where they say something, what about these Swiss bank accounts? And he famously says, I don't have a Swiss bank account. I do, however, have a bank account in Switzerland.
Oh, that's an entirely different thing.
Yeah.
Did you try and get your children into Scientology? Because
I did, yeah.
And your wife and their uncle would have been involved.
Absolutely, yeah. I did. I tried them on the children's communication course, and to be quite honest with you,
children's communication course.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of children's courses. I mean, one of the abuses of the organisation is what they do and how they treat children from a very young age. Because if the parents get involved and they've got young children, the parents suddenly find that they work in a 100-hour week. So all the children are lumped together. They used to call it the cadet org. And you'd have you'd have babies in there being looked after by a 15-year-old kid. There's been some awful tragic events in Australia where a couple actually lost 2 of their children when they were being supervised by a 15-year-old boy, while they were in a Scientology meeting, going hoo-ha, hip, hip, hooray, and all the rest of it, so...
I have to ask, because we're getting a lot of texts saying that Scientology is no different from any religion.
Oh, my God, it is. Believe me, it is.
Is evil a very harsh description?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. If you look at the two sides of the coin, there's good, where you actually do good and try and help people. Evil will be the exact opposite of that. And in my opinion, Scientology is the exact opposite of that. The people in there don't know this. They don't realise this. They think, going back to what I said earlier, that they're creating a world without insanity, crime and war. But if you look at the little office on Abbey Street, it's still the same size as it was 20 years ago. So, that's probably not working, and maybe they need to realise this. The drug rehabilitation program they have is not working. They lie and say they've got a 76% success rate. If you actually analyse this, the success rate of Narconon, that's what it's called, is actually worse than doing nothing.
What do you believe now?
What do I believe now?
Yeah. You were raised Catholic, you said.
Yeah. I'm kind of just like normal. I kind of have an interest in pagan things, but really, I go to Mass when I need to. or when I'm asked to.
When you need to. What does that mean?
Weddings, funerals, the usual thing.
And since you're, persona non grata, you're a suppressive person.
Oh, yeah.
I think you called it earlier on. How has that manifested itself? Have you gotten any negativity apart from obviously the most important thing of losing contact with your close family?
Yeah, I've been attacked online in recent times since I started organising this event. Some of the slurs I actually won't repeat on here, but let me just say enough. It is in the hands of the Gardaí right now, and they're investigating because the things they actually said are just like unbelievable, so.
On a point of dogma, I'm not familiar with all the Scientological, I suppose is the word, teaching.
Word, yeah.
What happens when you die?
Oh my. Well, you don't die, of course. You're an immortal spiritual being with unlimited potential. And if you do Scientology, you're releasing this potential with every little step on the bridge. They call it the bridge that you take. So in other words, you become more and more powerful. The ultimate aim is to be complete, utter and willing knowing cause over matter, energy, space, time, thought, form, life and events. In other words, a god. That's what you're aiming for.
So when the physical body dies, what happens then?
Oh,
you can't
well,
deny that.
Your physical body dies, but you, as a spiritual being, live on. We don't die, we never die, and Scientologists will frequently have this entire past dreamed up about who they were in previous lives. In fact, I think we've got 3 people here in Dublin who claim to have been Michael Collins. I thought there was only 1, but anyway, maybe there was 3.
Are there anybody claiming to be Dev?
Funnily enough, there's no devs that I know of. Yeah, we have a James Dean.
James Dean and Michael Collins.
Yeah.
That Michael Collins' film did a huge amount of damage, didn't it? Nobody wants to be Dev. Alan Rickman, if you're listening to this, I blame you. Pete, thank you very much for talking to us today.
You're welcome, Neil.
We have a text in, somebody saying, amazing story, that man's life has not been wasted. Look at all the good he's doing now to help people and speak the truth.
That's
so that
nice.
Others will not be conned. Is he speaking anywhere else? Thank you from Mary. Are you speaking anywhere else?
Actually, I'm going to be on Spin later today at about 10 to 2.
Okay, I kind of meant in terms of live events. Rather than
see, I shouldn't be plugging other radio stations.
Another radio station.
Okay, I did not plug another radio station, okay. Yes, there's the event on June the 30th in Parnell Square. But if anyone's homophobic, don't bother going because the Gay Pride's assembling right outside there at the same time. So
okay. I'll give the people the details. Pete has organised an event called Dublin Off Lines, speaking out against the Scientology cult. Jamie DeWolf, who's L Ron Hubbard's great-grandson, who was the founder that Pete mentioned there, is included among the many other guests confirmed. The Teachers Club, 36